Hey everyone, welcome to yet another edition of the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. Today with us is James Montgomery. James is a fantastic blues harmonica player. We're going to be talking to him in a second. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Positively Pittsburgh Live Magazine, pplmag.com, Pittsburgh's first internet radio, TV network, online community, and business directory. Go to pplmag.com. Also like to thank MTS Management Group. MTS Management is more than just an artist management company. It's a bona fide rock star in the music industry, specializing in full-service artist management, publicity and promotions, and social media campaigns. Go to mtsmanagementgroup.com. And like I said, guys, we have a great guest for you today, James Montgomery. When blues legend James Montgomery plays a harmonica, he brings it on home, whether it's recording with Kid Rock, sitting in with Gregg Allman, or fronting his hot band of 30 years. Montgomery plays with authority. While growing up in Detroit, he learned firsthand from the masters, James Cotton, John Lee Hooker, and Junior Wells, at the legendary Chessmate. Over the years, he carried on in the tradition and continues to be a vital presence in blues as one of the most dynamic performers on the scene. Welcome, James Montgomery. How are you today, James?
Well, good, especially after hearing all that stuff that my publicist wrote about me,
let's start off on a positive note before we get into the sex and the drugs and the bad marriages and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, you give the publicist $100 and they write something nice about you. You know what I mean? And it's like, give me $100 and I'll do your bio, okay?
Way to go. All right. So what made you want to play harmonica?
Well, I had a blues radio show for 5 or 6 years before I joined Johnny Wintersby, and I was on the road so much with him, I couldn't do the show anymore. But the reason I mention it is that I interviewed 110 blues artists, and half of whom I knew before the show, and half of whom I met because of the show. But anyway, every blues artist has a moment. Everything. All the two. People I interviewed had a clear moment when I think it's different with rock and roll. You ask a rock and roll guy, what is this? Oh, I love rock and roll. I want to play guitar. I want to get the girls. I want to wear Beatle boots. Whatever it is, But every blues musician will tell you the moment. Bonnie Raitt at camp when the camp counselor started playing blues, and Gregg Allman when he was down in Florida at this thing, and John Lee Hooker when he saw this girl on the street. And anyway, so that's what happened to me. I saw I was a big rock and roll kid, and when I was 15, I saw a harmonica player playing live blues in a jug band, and that was my moment. There was something about hearing live blues for the first time and this guy played harmonica, who eventually, I eventually became a member of that band. It was a jug band, and that guy is Chris Theo, who's now the leader of the Uptown Horns, and who I still play with on a regular basis. So I've been playing with Chris for 51 years now. But I had a moment. I had that moment that blues people have, where where I heard blues for the first time, and it just struck this unbelievable chord within me. It was, and it's basically that same feeling that we get when we play every night. It's just really unique, a really unique experience, but virtually every blues musician has it.
How do you learn to play the harmonica? I mean, are there harmonica lessons, or do you just kind of like go get a harp and just start listening? I mean, how do you become such an amazing player?
Jerry Portnoy, plays with Muddy Waters and Eric Clapton. He has a really good book out on DVD or whatever it is on how to play. But I would say for most of us, you just put it in your pocket and you walk around, and it much to the chagrin of the other people on the street and in your household, you just play it. And, when I saw that jug band, I really I really wanted to join that band. And as a matter of fact, I became the frontman for that band within 6 months after I saw him play for the first time. And the other thing is, if you want to play in a band, harmonica is the quickest way to get up there. In 6 months you could be good enough to play in a band, and if you play guitar, you got to play for a couple of years to be good enough to get up to play in a band. So I said, what's the quickest way to get on stage? Harmonica, But I did really love. The first time I heard live blues, there was a song called Casey Moan. It was, I think, a Jim Cluxton band used to cover that. It goes, I love to hear that Casey when she moan, and it's a great 12-bar blues thing, and I'll always remember that. And like I say, the guy who was playing harmonica in that band, he's with the Uptown Horns. They tour with the Stones and record with Jay Giles, and they're actually the only white people ever record with James Brown. To the horn section on James Brown's Living in America, and that guy and I, we played together twice over the New Year's weekend. So it's been great.
Oh, now you mentioned some of the people he's worked with. Now, over the years, I mean, your resume reads like a who's who, in rock and blues. Now, can you give us kind of a whirlwind synopsis of maybe some of the highlights, some of the folks that you work with?
Yeah, when I got signed. My high school band was really good, by the way. I started a blues band in high school, and we opened up for Iggy Pop and MC5 when I was in high school, and getting great reviews in the underground newspapers back then. So then I had a band in college, and then so just right out of college, my college band did so well that basically within a year after I graduated, I was thinking about teaching at BU, but the Allman Brothers called me up for the offer on Capricorn Records. So that was it. Once that happened, and while we were making the record, we met Bruce Springsteen, who was playing at a coffee house on the Bryn Mawr campus, and there was a 150-seater, and he sold half the house. So the night I met Bruce Springsteen, he sold 75 tickets. So over the years, what I mean to suggest by that is, over the years, because you're in the business, and we were a great touring band. We were one of the best opening bands on the circuit, and we were told that all the time. And so we hit the road. We hit the road with the Allman Brothers, Bruce Springsteen, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Marshall Tucker, Steve Miller, Aerosmith, everybody. And, so my first 15 years in the business after I signed the deal, we didn't play any nightclubs, basically. We just toured with every band that you could possibly imagine, and, developed lifelong friendships with a lot of these people. Steve Miller and Gregg Allman, of course, all the guys in Aerosmith were like family. I just played a gig for Joey Kramer when he opened up his Rockin' and Roastin' coffee nightclub up in Bethel, Maine. So I have, and I was fortunate enough to spend a few days with George Harrison, and I was fortunate enough to jam with Mick Jagger, and basically when I was sitting in the basement, when I was in the jug band when I was like 15 years old, playing a washtub bass, and I made a harmonica rack out of some stuff from my dad's 8-year-old railroad set, Basically, I'm sitting down there in the basement playing along to Jimmy Reed records and Muddy Waters records, playing in the wrong key, of course, because I had no idea what that was all about. My parents are upstairs watching TV going, oh, my God, will he never stop that? He's in the wrong key. He's all over the place. He doesn't know what he's doing. Please stop playing. But they didn't. And so basically, when I would close my eyes and think of B.B. King and John Lee Hooker and, Muddy Waters and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all that stuff, it's amazing because everybody who I thought of in that basement that I would visualize myself meeting and playing with, eventually it all happened. And my hands-on teachers were Junior Wells and James Cotton. John Lee Hooker was like a mentor to me. I played in his band when I was 19, and he lived in Detroit until I think 67 or 68. He probably moved out around then. But so it is true, and I have met and played with just about everybody, and including being a member of the Johnny Winter Band, a member of the Blues Brothers, and a member of Commander Cody and the Lost Planet Airmen, which is really that that might have been might have been the most fun I've ever had. But and people always say, "My God, you played with everybody in the business, you met everybody, and all this stuff." And now you just go, "Hey, listen, my band is 47 years old. If you have a band for 47 years, guess what? You're going to meet all these people too." So if anybody wants to meet rock and roll people or musical people, just have a band for 47. Meet them all.
So if you keep the band together for 47 years, you're bound to make something happen.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't meet anybody in 47 years, you're playing the wrong joints. You should talk to your agent. It's 47 years. I've been playing for 47 years. I haven't met anybody of note. Well, I think you need a new agent. Is what it is.
Now, you worked with Johnny Winter, towards the end, right? You worked with Paul Nelson and those guys. Paul was in the band at that time when you were that was the same era.
Yeah, exactly. But I look at it as though I didn't work with Johnny. My thing about Johnny is that towards the end, I always say those are his last 5 years. When he was in tremendously good shape. I joined the band when he was in really bad shape. As a matter of fact, the reason why they hired me was so they'd have somebody, younger than him who and I don't just sit there on stage. I love performing. I love working the audience. I move around a lot. I jump up and down. I do all this stuff. And so they kind of hired me to kind of, distract from the fact that Johnny was in such bad shape. Because his manager kept him on prescription drugs to control him and steal from him and all that stuff. And were there not a book out about describing the whole thing, I would never mention that on radio.
Right.
It's personal, but it's all in a book. Everybody knows the story. Otherwise, I would never talk personally about Johnny like that. But once it's in the book, it's fair game. So when I joined Johnny's band, and I went to that first rehearsal with him, and I'd known Johnny for 30 years at that point. When I was at the first rehearsal, I said, I don't think that you use the S word on radio, so I'll just say, "You got to be kidding me." But really, the S word is what I meant instead of kidding. But but it was a labor of love for all of us because we loved Johnny. And basically, we played together so often and toured so often that band became really, really tight. We could stop on a dime and give you a 9-cent change. So it was a good band. And Johnny could still play. He was just kind of a wreck. But between me and Paul, I got him a doctor who was a physician-in-chief at Tufts University Medical because I was running a program at the time where we provided free health care to all New England blues musicians. And he was living in Connecticut. So I hooked him up with a couple of the doctors in my program, Dr. Larry Hodis and Dr. Jerry Rosenberg. Between those doctors, within 8 months, he was taking 0 pills. And when I joined the band, he was taking probably 20 a day.
Mm.
The doctor called me and said, "James, you won't believe the stuff they have him taking. Some of this stuff cancels each other out. Some of it's dangerous to be taken together." So when I talk about Johnny and I say toward the end, well, I was with Johnny for the past 10 years of his life, for 5 years in the band. But once he was healthy, they didn't really need me anymore because Johnny was obviously clear, and his wife said, "Geez, James, thanks for giving me my husband back." So Johnny was clear. He was energetic. He was engaging. He didn't need anybody to go to the radio shows with him anymore to answer the questions. So Johnny's last 5 years, which I consider like the end of Johnny's chapter or whatever. he was in great shape, and he was a great guy, and he recorded with everybody in the business, Joe Bonamassa, Eric Clapton, Dr. John,
right.
Dusty, Warren Haynes, and, you know, the list goes on and on. But I love Johnny. I was the guy whose responsibility it was to stay up all night with him because he was a vampire. He was never up in the daytime. So, you know, I had double duty. I would stay up with Johnny till 4 or 5 in the morning, and then, you know, get up the next day and hang with the band and perform. And so I got to know Johnny really well, and I love the guy more than anything else. And one of the most amazing people who's ever lived, and I think probably the best rock, blues, slide guitar player.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about, you know, your experiences with that band, and thanks for telling us about that. There's a film. I think Paul told me that there's a film coming out in March, a documentary about Johnny. Are you in that?
It's really good. You know, I'm not. Now that you mention it, I'm really a little pissed off.
Oh no.
No, I'm always it's a joke. It's a joke to listeners. It's a joke. I think I should have been in every scene. I don't know. What was the director thinking? I have no idea what the director was thinking. You know. Well, yeah, let's put James in this one too. You know. But I've seen the film. It's really good, and you know, you really do get an idea. You can really. It's done well enough that if you didn't know Johnny, you'll know him by the end of the film.
Yeah.
It's you know, at least in that part of, in that part of his life. I mean, when I first met Johnny, you know, we were all bad kids back then. You know, everyone in the business was doing something, including the lawyers and for the record labels and the record label presidents. And you know, when I negotiated my first deal for $250,000 or whatever it was when I was 23 years old, you know, everybody at the table was doing something except for my lawyer, who was. And he told me, "Boy, did you get a great deal today?" Because those guys were too high to even know what they signed, you know. So, but you know, so I knew Johnny back in those days, you know, and he was like, you know, was just vibrant and at the top of his game, and then I saw him during the low period, and then I saw it when I was in the band, and then, you know, saw the big comeback at the end of his life, which was just so wonderful for all of us to see Johnny go out on top, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on to your to James Montgomery Band. Now, you guys are working on a new record for Cleopatra Records. Who's on it with you? Who's producing it? What's up with this?
Well, you know, the last record I did, I had Johnny on it, and I had two guys from Aerosmith on it. I had Brad Whitford and Joey Kramer on it, and I had the Uptown Horns, you know, the guy who I met when I was 15.
Right.
And I had James Cotton on it, who was my, you know, hands-on. You know, I call him Dad, and he calls me son. That's how close we are. And, you know, and when I call his wife manager will go, "Hey, your dad wants to say hello." And I had Cotton on it, and then I had the rapper DMC was on it, from Run DMC. So you're actually interviewing a rap artist here on this end of the phone here. But I rapped a song with DMC.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, so this record here we're doing. I don't want to call it. I hate tribute bands, so I don't want to call it a tribute. But we're kind of doing an acknowledgement or whatever, or a tip of the cap to Paul Butterfield, who I always thought was one of the most influential figures in American music, and often overlooked. Although when he did get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I was like so pleased because he so deserves to be there. He had such a huge influence on not only blues but rock. So we're doing a thing where we're doing like 7 Paul Butterfield songs, 7 or 8 Paul Butterfield songs, and then 3 or 4 originals. But
James is checking on a call there. He's getting their. Apparently, they're trying to get a guitar player for tonight. His regular guitarist is ill. So as we're recording this, this is how the music business works, guys. Sometimes you know, stuff doesn't go as exactly as planned. This is real life. and James had to pull away there for a minute to try to work the situation out because.
Yeah.
You back, buddy? I'm just telling the audience what was that you're a little bit about your situation, trying to get a guitar player for tonight. Did you find somebody?
Yeah. Well, I did get a guitar player for tonight, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's sorry to interrupt the interview, but that just shows you the real life of a real musician. and for those of you who are listening who are musicians, you'll know exactly what's going on. My guitar player got the flu. I got a gig at 4:00 today. It's now 11:00, and I got a call 10 minutes ago before the interview that my guitar player wasn't going to make it. So you go down your list. You go down the list of the guys you booked, and you got the guys. So I have a guitar player tonight. The listeners will be pleased to know that the show will go on, and it's during the Patriots playoff game, so which is bumming me out, but they do have a big screen TV right next to the stage, and I told them that usually, of course, obviously you don't want games on while you're playing, but
right.
Well, I told them that I would not play the gig unless they had the Pats and the Broncos on. So, I'll tell you this, and I want the listeners to know too, that during tonight's game, whenever anybody's under center, or whenever every play I will watch, and then when they're, getting ready to run another play, I'll look at the audience, and then when their play happens, I'll turn my back to the audience and watch the game. And anyway, it's going to be, I'm going to be playing and watching the game at the same time. So anyway, where were we before I had my guitar player call there?
We're talking about your new record coming out. Who's going to be on? Who's producing it, and all that?
Yeah. So we're just going to have a couple of guests on it, and we haven't even nailed them down yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to get Alvin Bishop and Mark Naftalin. I'm pretty sure Mark Naftalin's already going to do it. We already have Grace Kelly on it, and if your listeners don't know who Grace Kelly is, she is the hottest thing in jazz right now. I met her when she was 12, and at the age of 12, I swear, when I saw her play for the first time, I nudged the person next to me. I said, "Oh my God, she's 12 years old. She plays like Stan Getz." She was playing like Stan Getz at the age of 12. She's one of these, just extremely gifted prodigies. And by the time she was 13 or 14, Wynton Marsalis was putting her on his gigs, which is unheard of. But anyway, so she and my guitar player, George McCann. George McCann is playing guitar. David Hall is playing bass, and Jeff Thompson's on drums.
This is your live band, right? These are the guys that are in your touring.
Yeah. And they're all the best in the business. I mean, every once in a while, if Aerosmith needs a sub, Dave goes out and plays with Aerosmith. He's on that level, and I've been a Blues Brothers since Dan Aykroyd turned 30. I've done shows with them, and George is my guitar player. He sub for them a couple of times. So these people are on the level that the best people in the business hire them.
Yeah, so the band is great. Just if you guys go to YouTube and search James Montgomery Band. And there's some great videos. I mean, they're great live band. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to let everybody know.
Yeah, no. So these guys are great players, and so we've done the basic tracks. And Grace Kelly, we put her on it, and I recommend to all the listeners that they Google her and find out about her because, as a matter of fact, she just got landed a gig on the Stephen Colbert show. So she's the Asian girl on the. Playing the baritone. The baritone sax is as big as she is, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But she told me, she said, on the way to, so she's working with John Baptiste and the Stay Human band on Stephen Colbert. She said, on the way to that show, I was saying, well, this will be great because I know they're not going to ask me to play flute or baritone. And so she gets in and they say, well, we had it in mind that you should play flute and baritone tonight, So anyway, so she's on it. We wrote an instrumental, which is a great song. She's already on it. We're going to put a couple of guests on it. I'm going to approach Alvin Bishop and Mark Naftalin so we can get a couple of guys from Butterfield's original band on there. But I think Joe Louis Walker will probably do something on it. and Paul Nelson was producing, who was Johnny Winter, who produced the Grammy-winning Johnny Winter record. And it's coming out great. We're having a ball. And the Butterfield songs, by the way, a few of the slower ones we do pretty much like Paul did them. But the other stuff we drastically rearranged. Every time I do a cover, like the song that I did rap with Bo Diddley, with the DMC is "Who Do You Love" by Bo Diddley. Because Bo Diddley in some ways was the first rapper anyway. He did all those rhymes, So walking downtown with a rattlesnake whip, take it easy, baby, don't forget me, and all that stuff, So we did a hip-hop version of Bo Diddley's "Who Do You Love?" We don't have a Bo Diddley beat on it, not even close to a Bo Diddley beat on it. And on the Paul Butterfield stuff, on "One More Heartache," which was dump bum 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 ba boom bum 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 ba. We're doing it like as if James Brown had done it. We're doing Paul Butterfield meets James Brown on that one. Born in Chicago, we cut the tempo in half, and we put a whole different bass line on it. So the Butterfield stuff that we're going to cover, most of it will be, and it turns out Mary, Mary, which is the most haunting song that he ever recorded, it's really haunting and jarring and different, and it turns out it was written by Mike Nesmith, and the Monkees did a version of it, which is, and they're just like this sing-songy little thing, Mary, Mary, they're like, it's like, they're all happy and they're shaking their hair like the Beatles used to do and everything. So we actually combined Paul Butterfield's version with the Monkees version. So we're doing Paul Butterfield does the Monkees,
It sounds like it's going to be a cool record.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're having a ball, and my guys are playing their asses off on it. And we're going to throw a couple of guests on there, and it's almost done. We just have to add a couple of guest artists, and I got to go in and finish my vocals and harmonica. But it's going to be a great record.
Before we wrap up here, could you tell us about V is for Veterans?
Yeah. I did my first benefit for veterans in 1972, and believe me, back in those days, it was very unfashionable. People actually thought I was supporting the Vietnam War, supporting the administration, either Johnson or Nixon back then. I just said I was tail end of the street who was actually president of 72. But, I wasn't supporting the war. I wasn't supporting the administration. I wasn't supporting napalm and killing fields in Cambodia. I saw veterans on the street who were homeless. They needed help, and a Vietnam veterans group pointed out to me that these guys are being treated with disdain, and they didn't even want to join, most of them, because back then there was a draft, today's Army, people want to join, but in those days there were people that just got hauled off the street and went down, went in for the, and, they gave them an outfit and said, there you go.
Yeah.
So I started work for veterans in 72 and continued to do it over the years, and so we have a couple of umbrella companies here. Foundations. The one that's V is for Veterans is kind of an umbrella thing where we raise money under the nickname V is for Veterans, which is not a 501c3. But what we do is we raise money at these shows and donate all the money to 501c3. Primarily a group called Veterans Assisting Veterans, because we go to the groups, the veterans groups that are the most overlooked, and work with the people who have the most problems. For instance, paralyzed veterans. You never hear about them. You never see ads for them. But these guys are the ones who are paralyzed.
Yeah.
And nobody, they're not on anyone's radar. And so those are the kind of groups we work with. Everyone knows Wounded Warriors, and it's a great organization that does a lot of work. But, these guys are raising millions of dollars every year. And thank God that they are. I'm in no way trying to, speak disparagingly about that organization, because they're great. But we go to the veterans groups that tend to be overlooked and tend to work with the people in the most dire state.
Yeah. And how can people get involved, like pitch in or help out with that? Is there contact information for that?
Yeah, we did a live CD, and we used my band and a couple of guys from the Joe Cocker band, and we put a horn section on it. It's a great record. And we're even doing stuff like Land of 1,000 Dances and stuff. You know, we went off, we went off the songbook a little, just trying to make more of a fun record and more accessible. So that record, V is for Veterans, you can Google that, V is for Veterans. We're putting, this thing is brand new, by the way, so we're getting a website together for it. And, and it will be, all the information will be on jamesmontgomery.com within a week. And so you'll be able to get the record. It's a really good record, and all the money goes to veterans. And like I say, the veterans who really need the most help and are the most overlooked. So we're really proud about that.
Well, James, it's been like a really great talk, man. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day. I know you got a busy day coming up here.
I'm sorry to have the interruption there, but it's actually pretty cool when you think about it, because that's, you're talking to a working musician, and this is what happens to us. We get a call. We get a call at 10 o'clock that our guitar player can't make the 4 o'clock gig. And I'll tell you, when I had the radio show, by the way, one of my favorite interviews, I was interviewing Duke Robillard, and the whole interview was done while we were waiting in his car for AAA to show up, because the band van broke down. And so I'm in the band van, and we're doing the interview, and the interview stopped when AAA showed up. Well, AAA's here, so it's been nice talking to you, Duke. Get back on the road, and we'll see you later.
So other than the gig at 4 o'clock in the Patriots game and getting your guitar player straightened out, anything else coming up next that you want to let everybody know about? Stuff coming up maybe in the next 6 to 12 months for you guys.
Well, yeah, it's the thing about our band is, and all I would suggest is that the listeners go to jamesmontgomery.com, because we work 150 nights a year, and so we're all over the place. Right now this part of the winter here, we'll be doing some stuff in New England. As a matter of fact, the gig that I would really like to plug, I guess, is we're playing Darrell Hall's place in Pauling, New York, on Saturday, the 6th of February. But we're playing Jonathan's up in Gunkwood and the Captain Hepburn Theater, which is a fantastic venue in Old Lyme, Connecticut. But anyway, we play so much that it's really difficult to mention specific places. But Darrell's place up in Pauling, New York, Jonathan's in Gunkwood on the 13th of February, and then on the 20th we're at the Captain Hepburn Theater. And then we're going out with the Johnny Winter All-Star Band, and we have about 6 or 7 dates in February and about 10 dates in March, and those will be on the website too. And that's and what the deal with that is, it's kind of like, Johnny won the Grammy after he passed away, and knowing Johnny, because and I will say that Johnny was his own biggest fan. He really was. The slide guitar player solo we did on my record, and we had 2 guys from Aerosmith playing with him on that cut. When he was done taking his first take, everyone was a jaw-dropping take. And, the producers are thinking, can we get one more, just so we have something else? And Johnny goes, I don't think I can top that. But anyway, so we kind of feel that Johnny won the Grammy, but he never had a chance to tour behind that as a Grammy winner. And we kind of feel, and Johnny's estate kind of feels that that we're going to do some dates this year with guys who played in Johnny's band. Everybody who's in the Johnny Winter All-Star Band it has to have been a member of the band. And we're just going to do this kind of to go around the country and just point out to people that, that Johnny went out on top, and he went out with a Grammy, and we're pretty sure that Johnny would be looking down going, hey, thanks, guys, for carrying on my legacy for an extra year and letting people know that I won the highest award in music.
Well, that sounds like you have a full year between that and you got a new record and everything you got going on.
You got
a lot going on.
I like to be busy.
Of course.
Hey, listen, I can't thank you enough for having me on because, and your listeners should understand, that, the way that most radio is, where they play the top, that top 40 format that what's his name developed years ago. People are lucky to have a show like yours within their listening area or whatever, or within the stations that you're on, because it's just this kind of programming is rare, and as blues musicians, we thank you immensely for having us on, because it's we're like 2% of the marketplace, and we need all the help we can get.
Well, you guys, blues is really important, and I mean it's really the it's the daddy of rock and roll, and in many ways, blues today really is kind of what rock and roll was, 30 years ago. So I mean, it's all together now.
Yeah, and I'm going to start a campaign. This year, I'm going to try and get it in full force, where people like Bonnie Raitt and Eric Clapton and people that get it, I want them to wear, like, how they have those pink ribbons for breast cancer, and they have the yellow ribbons for veterans, and
okay,
and that thing. I want to get enough people at the Grammys wearing blue ribbons, so that when they're asked what's with the blue ribbons, they say, look, they never show who wins the blues Grammy ever. They don't even mention it. And it's the basis of everything that's going on here. All this pop music that we're giving out awards for, conceivably never would have happened without blues.
Yeah.
So we want 10 seconds of the broadcast to show the guy walking up there and getting his blues Grammy. 10 seconds. That's all I want. And, and so that blues finally gets recognized by the music industry for what it really is, the basis of everything that we hear.
Hey, James, thanks a lot, man. Good luck with your show later today, and I can't wait to hear. Does the new record have a title yet?
Listen, I'm going to have a terrible show in a Patriots victory. than the greatest show I've ever than the greatest show I've ever played in my entire life. And the past blues. I don't want. I want to suck today. I'm going to play awful today. I want to do the worst show I've ever done in my life, and look from stage and see the Patriots winning a football game. That's what I do.
Okay. Well, let's hope the Patriots win. And thanks a lot, guys. Once again, that is JamesMontgomery.com. And you can catch up with everything that James is doing. And thanks a lot, James, all right? And we will we do a music cast once a week, and we'll make sure that we'll play something off of you have a live record out right now.
Yeah, the one for the veterans. But
yeah.
And let me know if you don't have that Detroit to the Delta, the one I put out, I'll make sure that you get some tracks for that, okay?
Yeah, you guys kick ass, so I definitely want people to hear it.
Yeah, I do have the best blues. There's not a better blues band in the country than mine. There are some that are as good, but and very few. And I can say that because it's not me, it's the band. I just sit up there and, I'm just a harmonica player and singer. These guys are really...
James, you're much more than a harmonica player. I mean, you have great stage presence. It's a really like up, kind of like in your face kind of show. I mean, a lot of bands of that style and stuff are kind of like reserved. You guys really put on a real show.
I learned that from James Cotton. My harmonica phrasing is mostly I learned directly from Junior Wells and Paul Butterfield. But the whole idea of how to run a show and put a show together, I got all that from James Cotton. And back in the days when blues Nazism was pretty rampant, where if you played something that was different than 12 bars, you'd be frowned upon by the blues community. James Cotton, his band was playing Knock on Wood, Hold On, I'm Coming, the Isley Brothers.
Yeah.
And James Cotton's band was always really, really high energy, really intense. He kicked ass. He came to take no prisoners. And that's how I model myself. I'm just doing what James Cotton taught me.
We'll keep doing it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, that's jamesmontgomery.com, everyone. Once again, guys, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Positively Pittsburgh Live. It's pplmag.com and MTS Management Group. That is mtsmanagementgroup.com. If you like what you're hearing here, you're interested in these artists that won't get the time of day or sometimes don't get the time of day that they deserve or the airplay that they deserve on terrestrial radio or even satellite radio, please check out our past podcasts on Loudini, rockandrollcircus.com. That's Loudini, just like Houdini, but with an L. Loudini, rockandrollcircus.com, and where we talk to great artists like James and Paul Nelson and Lance Lopez and all these amazing musicians. Guys, catch up with us on social media. You can find me on Twitter at @LLStrangelove. And, guys, thanks so much for listening, and thanks, James Montgomery, and have a great show, and may the Patriots win. I'm in Pittsburgh, man. I'm going to get hate mail.
I know you are. Yeah, well, no, if you're in Pittsburgh and you're saying that, you better find a bunker. You better find a bunker immediately. and don't come out until people have forgotten about the football season.
Okay, James.
And by the way, anybody who has any question about Deflategate, look up something called the ideal gas law. It's a law of physics. And there's a big article in the New York Times today about how many scientists from around the country are going, you got to be kidding me. Of course the pressure was different. It had to be because it's a law of physics. But anyway, don't get me started. Love you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Take care, James. I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Good luck.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.